Nyara was making a quiet dinner for her husband, Akon, in their cozy home in Abuja. They had been married for 7 years, but things had changed. Akon, who once cared for her, now ignored her, focused only on work. As Nyara set the table, she felt his coldness and began to doubt their marriage. When Akon came home tired and angry, they argued. In a fit of rage, he kicked Nyara out, calling her a burden. Standing in the rain, wet and heartbroken, Nyara realized she had nothing left to lose and no reason to stay. Nyara stood there in shock, the rain pouring down, her heart pounding in her chest. The storm raged around her, but nothing compared to the storm inside her. She was alone on the wet pavement, with nothing but the sound of the rain and the distant echo of the door slamming behind her. Akon had kicked her out, just like that. After 7 years of marriage, this was how it ended. He called her a burden and shoved her out of the house like she didn't matter. The weight of his words hit her harder than the cold rain that drenched her from head to toe. She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. How had it come to this? She had tried so hard to make things work. She had loved him, supported him, but nothing was enough. She couldn't stop shaking. The wind howled and the rain stung her face, but she didn't move. She felt like a ghost, lost and abandoned. As she started to walk away, trying to find some place where she could clear her mind, a car suddenly pulled up beside her. The headlights cut through the darkness, and the sound of the engine roared in her ears. At first, she didn't know what to think. Was someone stopping to mock her? To make her feel worse? But then the car door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, with kind eyes that seemed to see right through her. He wore a jacket, and without a word, he walked over to her. His steps were calm and measured, like he wasn't rushing, like he actually cared. "You look like you need this," he said, holding out his jacket. Nyara was stunned. She had expected cruelty, maybe more insults, but not kindness. The man, Tunde, as he introduced himself, had witnessed the entire scene from across the street. He had seen Akon slam the door and heard the harsh words. Most people would have ignored her, let her suffer in silence, but not him. He offered her warmth when she had been left out in the cold. Nyara didn't know what to say. Her throat felt tight, like the words were stuck inside her. She had always been strong, always been the one to give, but now she felt so small, so weak. She looked at Tunde, unsure of whether to accept his kindness or to keep walking away, trying to hold on to the little bit of pride she had left. But something in her shifted. She couldn't remember the last time someone had been so kind to her. Akon had stripped her of everything, her love, her confidence, and her sense of worth. And here was a stranger, a man she had never met, offering her his jacket without expecting anything in return. Tunde's empathy touched something deep inside her. She felt the walls she had built around her heart start to crumble, just a little. I don't know what to do," Nyara whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. Tunde didn't hesitate. "Come with me," he said gently. "I'll take you somewhere safe." Without thinking, Nyara nodded and followed him to the car. She sat in the passenger seat, the warmth of the jacket around her shoulders a small comfort in the chaos of her emotion. Tunde started the engine and drove through the storm, his calm presence a sharp contrast to the storm raging inside her. They arrived at a small cafe, its warm light shining through the windows, a welcoming glow in the darkness. Tunde helped Nyara out of the car and led her inside. The owner, an older woman, smiled when she saw Tunde and then looked at Nyara with kind eyes. "You're safe here," she said softly. As Nyara sat down, she felt the weight of the world lift just a little. The storm outside still raged, but inside there was peace. Tunde sat across from her, his gentle presence making her feel like she wasn't alone in the world. For the first time in what felt like forever, someone was actually listening to her. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," Tunde said, his voice soft but firm. "No one deserves that." Nyara looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes. She hadn't realized how badly she needed someone to say those words until now. "I don't even know what happened," she confessed. "I thought I was doing everything right, but he still threw me away." Tunde nodded, understanding. "People can be cruel, but it's not your fault. You deserve someone who respects you, who values you." Nyara felt something stir inside her. It wasn't just the relief of escaping the rain. but the realization that maybe, just maybe, she could start over. This moment, this kind stranger, was the beginning of something new. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. This encounter with Tunde, a stranger who showed her kindness when she thought all was lost, would change everything. The rain hammered against the windows as Tunde drove Nyara through the storm. The world outside was a blur of water and darkness, but inside the car there was a strange quiet, a calmness that felt almost surreal after everything that had just happened. Nyara still couldn't believe Ekon had kicked her out. One moment she was holding on to hope, and the next, it all shattered in an instant. As they drove, Nyara stared out the window, her mind spinning. She hadn't spoken much since Tunde had offered her his jacket. The warmth of it had felt like a lifeline, but her mind was still reeling from the harsh words Ekon had said to her. Burden. She kept hearing the word in her head. Was that really how he saw her? A burden? She shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. Now wasn't the time to think about him. She had to focus on the present. Tunde's car slowed as they pulled up to a small cafe, the lights flickering through the rain. The moment they stepped out of the car, the warmth of the cafe hit Nyara like a wave. She felt a sense of relief, like she had been standing in a storm for hours and finally found shelter. Tunde led her inside, where the air smelled of fresh coffee and baked bread. The cafe was cozy, with soft lighting and the quiet murmur of a few patrons sitting at tables. The owner, an older woman with kind eyes, greeted them with a smile before leading them to a small table by the window. Nyara sat down, feeling the weight of her soaked clothes and damp hair. Tunde sat across from her, his presence calm and reassuring. She couldn't remember the last time someone had been so kind, so patient. It felt strange, almost unreal. "Are you okay?" Tunde asked, his voice low and gentle. Nyara nodded, but she wasn't sure if she was telling the truth. She wasn't okay. She was a mess. Her world had just crumbled, and she didn't know how to pick up the pieces. "I don't know where to go from here," Nyara said quietly, her voice trembling. "I thought I had everything figured out. I thought we were happy, but now it feels like my whole life has been a lie." Tunde listened, really listened, as if he understood exactly what she was going through. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer any advice. He just let her speak, and for the first time in a long time, Nyara felt heard. "I understand," Tunde said after a moment, his tone soft but firm. "I lost my wife not too long ago. She was sick for a long time, and I watched her slowly fade away. It's been hard. I've been traveling ever since, trying to clear my mind, trying to find some peace." Nyara looked at him, her heart aching. He had suffered too, in his own way. There was a sadness in his eyes, a deep loss that mirrored the pain she was feeling. "I'm sorry," Nyara whispered, not sure what else to say. Tunde gave a small smile, but there was no pity in his eyes. "It's all right. It's a part of life, but I've learned something. You can't go through life pretending everything is fine when it's not. You have to face the pain, let it in, and let it teach you." Nyara felt a lump form in her throat. She had spent so many years pretending everything was fine, pretending that Ekon loved her, that they were happy. But now, everything had been ripped away, and she didn't know what to do. Tunde continued, "I know it's hard, but you don't have to face it alone. If you ever need a place to stay, or someone to talk to, you're welcome to come to my place. I'm not expecting anything in return. I just want to help, however I can." His offer was unexpected, and Nyara felt a rush of emotions. How could he be so kind to a stranger like her? He didn't even know her story, yet he was offering her safety, a place to rest. She felt overwhelmed, not just by the kindness of his offer, but by the relief it gave her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. Tunde's warmth, his genuine compassion, began to melt the ice that had formed around Nyara's heart. She hadn't realized just how cold and empty her life had become until this moment. The love and understanding that Tunde was showing her made her feel like she could breathe again. Nyara's heart softened. The weight of her pain lessened just a little. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope after all. The next morning, Nyara woke up in a small, cozy room at Tunde's place. The soft light filtering through the window felt warm and calming. It was a stark contrast to the storm she'd faced the night before. She had spent the past few days staying with Tunde, allowing herself the space to heal. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. Tunde had been kind to her, giving her a safe place to stay and letting her open up about everything she had been through. His kindness was something she had never expected, and it was exactly what she needed. Meanwhile, back at their home, Ikon was starting to feel the weight of his actions. He sat in their empty living room, staring at the space where Nyara's things had been. His friends and family had all been talking about the argument and how terrible he had treated her. They told him he had gone too far, that kicking her out was unforgivable. Ikon had always prided himself on being a good husband, but now he realized how much he had hurt Nyara. Guilt crept into his heart. The realization hit him hard. What have I done? He thought. He wondered if he had lost her forever. He couldn't shake the feeling that Nyara might never come back, and that thought made his stomach churn. But his pride, that stubborn part of him that refused to admit he was wrong, kept him from reaching out to her. He couldn't bring himself to apologize, even though he knew deep down it was the right thing to do. The storm outside seemed to reflect the chaos in his mind. The rain poured down in sheets, as if nature itself was echoing the turmoil Ikon was feeling. He stared out the window, torn between the desire to make things right and the pride that was holding him back. Back at Tunde's place, Nyara was slowly starting to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The kindness Tunde had shown her was like a balm for her wounded heart. She didn't expect to feel this way, but she was beginning to realize that she felt safe with him. His listening ear, his gentle words, and the warmth he offered were helping her heal. The more time she spent with Tunde, the more she found herself drawn to him. He wasn't like Ikon. He didn't take her for granted. He didn't make her feel small. In fact, he made her feel important, like her feelings actually mattered. It was a strange feeling, and Nyara wasn't sure what to do with it. She wasn't ready to rush into anything, but she couldn't deny the connection she felt with Tunde. It was like he understood her in a way no one else ever had. As she looked out the window at the rain, she realized that the storm inside her had begun to calm down. But the storm inside Ikon, it was only just beginning. Ikon's heart raced as he paced around his empty home. The weight of his actions hit him hard. The storm inside him had grown stronger, much like the one outside. He realized that he had pushed Nyara to the edge, and now he was in danger of losing everything: his marriage, his reputation, and the love he once took for granted. His pride had kept him from apologizing for days, but now it was too late. He couldn't stop thinking about Nyara and what he'd done. Desperation kicked in. He couldn't imagine a life without her, and the thought of her never coming back tore him apart. He picked up his phone, dialing her number. His hands shook as he left message after message, begging for her forgiveness. "Nyara, please, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean what I said. I miss you. I'll do anything to make it right. Please come back." His voice cracked in the last message, but Nyara, in the peace she had found with Tunde, was too hurt to respond. She didn't want to hear his apologies. She didn't want to go back to the life she had with him, full of neglect, anger, and broken promises. She had felt invisible in that marriage for too long. That evening, Nyara sat on the couch, her phone in her hand. She stared at Ikon's voicemail, unsure whether to listen. She took a deep breath and played it. As his voice echoed in her ears, her anger surged. She remembered everything: how he had pushed her aside, how he had kicked her out into the rain. The pain from that moment flooded back. Her heart hardened as the voicemail ended. "He's only sorry now because he knows he might lose me," she thought, but it's too late. Nyara put the phone down, feeling the weight of her decision. She refused to go back to the life she had known. The woman she had been was gone, and the woman she was becoming deserved better. She deserved love and respect, things she hadn't gotten from Ikon. Meanwhile, Tunde noticed the sadness in Nyara's eyes as she listened to the voicemail. He could see the internal battle she was fighting. He had been there for her through her worst moments, and he saw the strength growing in her. As they spent more time together, Nyara started to open up, letting Tunde in on her fears, her hopes, and the pain she had buried for so long. Tunde offered her something Ikon never had: respect. He showed her kindness without expecting anything in return. For the first time in ages, Nyara felt safe. She could laugh without worrying about being judged, and she could cry without feeling weak. Tunde's warmth was a sharp contrast to the coldness Ikon had shown her. The more she was around him, the more she realized that love didn't have to come with hurt. He cared for her in a way that made her feel valued, and that was a gift she couldn't ignore. As the days passed, Nyara grew closer to Tunde, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she deserved a love like one where her feelings mattered and where respect came first. The storm inside her was settling, but the storm in Ikon's heart, it was only just beginning. The tension in the cafe was thick that day. Nyara sat at a corner table with Tunde, sipping her coffee, feeling at peace for the first time in weeks. She didn't expect what was coming. Suddenly, the door opened, and Ikon walked in. His eyes locked onto Nyara, his face filled with a mix of desperation and regret. He didn't even see Tunde sitting across from her. He just marched over, his voice shaking as he reached their table. "Nyara, please, I need to talk to you," Ikon said, his voice desperate. "I've been thinking about everything. I was wrong. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. I promise I'll change. I'll do anything to fix this." Nyara's heart skipped a beat, but there was no longer any room for his lies. Her eyes filled with tears, but she stayed strong, holding back the flood that wanted to break free. She looked at Ikon, the man she had once loved, and realized how far she had come since she walked away. With a calm voice, she said, "It's too late, Ikon. You can't control me anymore. You lost me the moment you treated me like I didn't matter." Ikon's face dropped. His eyes widened with shock, but he wasn't ready to give up. "Please, Nyara, I love you. I can change. Just give me a chance." But Nyara shook her head, her heart breaking. "Number, you don't love me. You love the idea of me, the woman you could control, but that woman is gone." Tunde, who had been silently observing, could see the pain in Nyara's eyes. He stood up, his presence strong and unwavering. He stepped forward, standing between Nyara and Ikon, blocking his way. He wasn't going to let Ikon manipulate her anymore. "You've had your chance," Tunde said, his voice firm. "But it's over now. Nyara deserves more than empty promises and lies. She deserves respect, love, and someone who values her for who she is." Ikon took a step back, stunned by Tunde's words. He had always been used to getting his way, but here was someone who wasn't afraid to stand up to him, someone who cared about Nyara in a way he never had. For the first time, Ikon realized the truth. He had lost her. He stood there, speechless, his mind racing. How could he have been so blind? How could he have let someone else see Nyara's worth while he had treated her like she was nothing? Tunde's words echoed in his mind. "Nyara deserves more than you." Nyara looked at Ikon one last time, her heart no longer heavy with hope. It was gone. She'd found something far setter. "You're right, Tunde," Nyara said, her voice soft but strong. "I do deserve more, and I've finally found it." Ikon stood there, his pride shattered. The reality of what he had lost hit him hard. He had taken Nyara for granted, and now there was no going back. As Nyara and Tunde left the cafe together, Ikon watched them walk out. His heart sank. For the first time in his life, he knew he had truly lost something priceless. Nyara wasn't just walking away from a marriage. She was walking into a future where she was loved, respected, and finally free, and there was nothing Ikon could do to stop it. Ikon stood in the cafe doorway, his heart sinking with every step Nyara took away from him. He had begged for her forgiveness, made promises he never intended to keep, and yet it wasn't enough. Nyara wasn't looking back. She was walking away with Tunde, and Ikon knew deep down that he had lost her forever. As the door swung closed behind them, Ikon stood frozen, humiliated. He had destroyed the one thing that had meant the most to him, and now there was nothing left but regret. His mind raced with 1,000 questions. How did it come to this? What could I have done differently? But the answers were clear. He had pushed Nyara away with his coldness, his control, and his cruelty. Now he was alone, forced to face the consequences of his own actions. In a desperate attempt, Ikon reached for his phone, his hands trembling as he dialed Nyara's number. He needed her to hear him, to understand that he was sorry, that he had changed. But when the phone rang and went to voicemail, his heart shattered. "Nyara, please, pick up. I know I've hurt you, but I can't lose you. Please come back to me." His voice cracked, but there was no answer. He hung up, feeling the weight of his words crash over him. The silence on the other end was deafening. Nyara had moved on, and Ekon was left with nothing but his empty words and shattered pride. Meanwhile, Nyara felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. She had spent so many years living in a marriage where her worth was questioned, where love felt like an afterthought. Now, walking side by side with Tunde, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: freedom. Tunde, ever kind and supportive, had been there for her when no one else was. He didn't judge her. He didn't try to change her. He just listened, truly listened, as she began to open up about the years of pain she had endured. With Tunde's encouragement, Nyara began to see her own worth again. She wasn't the broken woman Ekon had left behind. She was strong, capable, and ready to rebuild her life. Tunde wasn't asking for anything in return. He just wanted to help her find the happiness she deserved. It was a feeling Nyara had almost forgotten, someone caring for her without expecting anything in return. Together, they started making plans. Nyara began working on a new career path she had always dreamed of, but had never had the courage to pursue. She started taking small steps toward the life she had always wanted, free from the chains of Ekon's control. As the days went by, Nyara felt lighter. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't looking over her shoulder, waiting for the next emotional blow. She was moving forward, and it felt like she was finally in control of her own destiny. Ekon, on the other hand, was left to wallow in the emptiness he had created. The guilt and shame of losing Nyara gnawed at him, but it was too late. He had lost her, and this time, there was no coming back. Nyara was free, and as she embraced her new life, she knew she would never let anyone control her again. The story of Nyara's escape spread like wildfire. It wasn't just a personal victory, it was a statement. People all over the country rallied behind her, inspired by her strength and courage to leave a toxic marriage. The headlines screamed her story: "Woman escapes abusive marriage, finds love and freedom." Nyara's face became a symbol of empowerment. She was no longer the woman who was silenced and controlled. She was the woman who had taken her life back. People saw her not as a victim, but as a hero. Support poured in from all corners of the world. Women who had gone through similar struggles reached out, offering their support and admiration. Social media exploded with messages of encouragement, with hashtags like #Nyara Strong and #Empowered Women rising to the top of the trending list. Opportunities flooded in. Brands wanted to work with her, offering endorsements and collaborations. But it wasn't just about business. It was about reclaiming her voice. Nyara, once trapped in a life of fear, was now using her platform to speak out. She began sharing her story, encouraging other women to walk away from unhealthy relationships and find their own strength. As Nyara blossomed into the icon she was always meant to be, Ekon's world began to crumble. The public backlash was swift and unforgiving. News outlets that once praised him now ran exposés on his abusive behavior. His business partners, once loyal, began distancing themselves, unable to ignore the growing evidence of his toxicity. The man who had once been seen as a successful, respected figure was now the subject of widespread disgust. Ekon tried to salvage his reputation, but it was too late. The damage was done. Investors pulled out of his projects, and clients dropped their contracts. Even his closest friends began to distance themselves, unwilling to associate with a man who had caused so much pain. In contrast, Tunde, who had quietly stood by Nyara from the start, became her pillar of support. His quiet strength and compassion were exactly what Nyara needed in this new chapter of her life. He wasn't seeking attention or recognition, he just wanted to see her happy. But his role in helping Nyara heal didn't go unnoticed. People praised him for being the kind of man Nyara had always deserved. As the weeks passed, Nyara continued to shine. She began public speaking engagements, sharing her journey of healing, self-discovery, and independence. Her story resonated with so many, and soon, She was asked to be the keynote speaker at women's empowerment events across the country. Meanwhile, Ekon sat in the silence of his own making, alone with the wreckage of his life. Every attempt to fix things only dug him deeper into a hole of shame and regret. His reputation, once built on success, was now in ruins. Nyara, however, was thriving. She had found the courage to break free, and now, with the world watching, she was showing everyone that it was possible to rise above the darkness. The public had spoken. They were on Nyara's side, and with that, she knew her journey of empowerment was just beginning. With Tunde by her side, Nyara began a new chapter of healing. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to rebuild her life, piece by piece. The first step was therapy. After years of emotional abuse, she finally understood that she needed help to heal. Tunde encouraged her to seek professional support, but never pushed. He respected her pace and was always there when she needed to talk, but he never forced her into anything. Every therapy session was tough, but it helped Nyara break free from the chains of her past. Slowly, she began to understand the extent of the damage Ekon had caused. The emotional scars were deeper than she had realized, but with each session, she found herself gaining strength. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened. It was about learning to move forward, to take control of her life again. As Nyara worked through her pain, she also started to focus on her career. Before Ekon had come into her life, she had been passionate about her work, but over the years, he had chipped away at her confidence, making her feel small and unimportant. Now, for the first time in years, Nyara started to rediscover her old self. She began working on projects she had once put aside, pursuing goals she had forgotten she even had. She felt the spark of passion ignite inside her again, and it felt like freedom. Tunde was there every step of the way. He didn't try to rush her or change her. He simply supported her, allowing her the space to grow. When Nyara had a bad day, Tunde didn't try to fix it. He just listened. He never told her what to do or when to make decisions about their future. He knew that healing wasn't something that could be forced. It was something Nyara had to do on her own terms. The way Tunde treated her made Nyara see him in a new light. At first, she had seen him as someone who had saved her, someone who had stepped in when she was broken and lost. But as time passed, Nyara began to realize that Tunde was not just her rescuer, he was her equal. He respected her independence and her strength. He never tried to control her or rush her healing process. He allowed her to be who she was, and that was something she had never experienced before. As Nyara's healing continued, so did her feelings for Tunde. What started as gratitude grew into something deeper. She began to realize that Tunde was not just a kind man who had helped her escape her past. He was someone she admired, someone she respected, and someone she could see herself building a future with. His patience, understanding, and unwavering support had shown her what true love looked like. The love they shared wasn't built on promises or expectations. It was built on trust, respect, and the freedom to be themselves. Nyara had spent so many years in a marriage where she felt controlled and trapped, but with Tunde, she felt free. Free to be herself, free to grow, and free to love without fear. For the first time in a long while, Nyara felt at peace. She was no longer a victim of her past. She was a survivor. And with Tunde by her side, she knew that the future held endless possibilities. Together they were creating something beautiful, a love that was built on equality, respect, and the freedom to thrive. As Nyara continued to heal, she felt stronger than ever. And with Tunde's support, she knew that her journey was far from over. It was just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter in her life. As time passed, Nyara and Tunde's bond grew stronger, and their lives became a beautiful testament to healing, love, and mutual respect. Nyara, who had once been broken by the man she loved, now found herself in a relationship where she was valued for who she was. Tunde never tried to change her. He accepted her past, her flaws, and her strengths. Together, they built a life filled with trust, laughter, and a deep understanding of each other's needs. Nyara's journey wasn't easy. There were days when the memories of her past hurt, and the scars of her emotional abuse resurfaced. But with Tunde's unwavering support, she learned to face those shadows. She found her voice again and for the first time felt truly free. She focused on her career, followed her passions, and rediscovered the woman she had once been, the confident, independent, and strong woman she had almost forgotten. Meanwhile, Ekon's life took a different turn. Left alone, with no one to support him, he watched helplessly as Nyara moved on. The friends and family who had once backed him in his wrongdoings turned their backs, disgusted by his actions. His business partners distanced themselves, unable to ignore his past behavior. Ekon, unable to grasp the depth of his mistakes, was left to wallow in his regret. He saw Nyara, now flourishing and happy, and felt the full weight of the loss he had caused. But it was too late for him to turn back. The contrast between Nyara and Ekon's lives couldn't have been clearer. Nyara was now surrounded by people who loved and respected her, people who saw her strength and valued her for the woman she had become. She had moved beyond the man who once controlled and belittled her. Ekon, on the other hand, had no one left to share his regret. He had lost everything: the respect of his peers, his marriage, and the woman he once loved. As Nyara stood tall, side by side with Tunde, she realized how far she had come. She was no longer defined by the man who had tried to break her. She had reclaimed her life, her happiness, and her worth. She was a woman who had chosen to rise above her past, not to be a victim, but a survivor. The love she shared with Tunde was proof that she could build something beautiful and lasting, no longer living in the shadows of her past mistakes.